hot in my garage. So I don't fancy myself as much of a reviewer, but I would say that I am definitely a maker. And because of that, I am always looking for more tools and more things that can enable me to really make whatever I want, especially things that come out looking awesome and professional. So something I have thought about before is getting a laser engraver, and that is why when Atomstack reached out to me asking if I was willing to review their Ace Pro V2 laser engraver, I said yes. This is something I don't know a lot about, so they've always daunted me in the past in both their complexity, some of the safety things, as well as their cost. But I think after about 2 months with this machine, I think I found an excellent addition to my maker toolset, and I'm very happy with it. For full transparency here, I should say the laser engraver, the enclosure, and the air assist module were all provided by Atomstack for free. I will try to not let that fact persuade or change my review in any way, but it is worth mentioning to just be as transparent as possible. I did spend my own money to buy the Atomstack honeycomb board as well as a license key for the software. You do not need to buy software for this device, but I chose the software that is paid. I just thought it was a little bit better. And I did buy all the supplies myself. I also want to say that I am no master of laser cutters. In fact, I'm very much so a beginner. I'm still hoping that this review will provide some utility and information to those of you that know better than me. But with that all being said, feel free to always let me know in the comments below of any advice you give, any questions you have, or really anything else at all. So in this video, I'm first going to go over the specs of everything. I am then going to go over my initial impressions and unboxing. I'm going to go over some of my initial tests that I did. And then to follow it up, I think for this video, I decided to do a project. I will go over that project and then I'll follow up with my conclusion. Like I said, I spent about 2 months with this machine, so I feel very well versed with it. And I think I have a lot to say. So I am reviewing the Ace Pro 2. There are 2 versions of the Ace Pro 2. There is the A10 Pro V2 and the A20 Pro V2. I currently have the A10 Pro V2. The A10 Pro V2 features a 12-watt laser, while the A20 Pro V2 features a 24-watt laser. Now say Pro V2 100 times fast. These are both blue diode laser engravers with a 400 by 400 millimeter engraving area. That is plenty big enough for me, and not only can they both engrave, but they can also cut. What they can cut is limited by physics as well as the strength of their laser. And by physics, I mean the color of the laser. For example, a blue laser engraver has no trouble cutting through black opaque acrylic. However, if I put clear acrylic on here, there is no way I could cut through it no matter how powerful that blue laser is. You would need something like a CO2 laser. So it is important to buy a laser cutter that is specifically more catered for your needs. If you want to cut clear acrylic, this is not the laser for you. If you're cool with cutting wood and black acrylic, then a diode laser would be perfect. Both are made from what seems to be a custom extruded aluminum frame. I was surprised by the quality of the extrusions on this. I gotta say, I'm really impressed with the quality of material. This is anodized aluminum. Yeah, it's just funny. I was so impressed by the quality of the extrusion itself. It just kind of feels good to touch. One of the most important things to mention is these are both considered open frame laser engravers, which means that they don't have any sort of enclosure around them. The laser itself is visible from almost any angle, and that is very dangerous for your eyes. So you need to make sure you're keeping proper precaution when you're doing this sort of thing. But if you notice, I have it in an enclosure. This is actually a foldable enclosure that Atomstack included. They did this because I told them originally I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, which is true, and I wouldn't really have any way of using this in my garage. But if you notice, I'm in my garage now, and that is actually because a bonus feature that this, at least what I consider a bonus feature that this offers that I'll talk about later. Still, the enclosure is a huge difference maker, not only because of the additional eye safety stuff. I mean, you should still wear the glasses even when it's in the enclosure. You don't want to look at the laser in any sort of way. I mean, damaging your eyes can last forever. But not only the eye safety, but also the fact that it vents out the fumes. It has a big thing on the side. I extended the tube to make it even longer, and I just vent it out into the alleyway behind my apartment building. That just makes life easier. I'm not cutting anything that's toxic. You should never cut PVC or any plastics like that. Acrylic is safe to cut, but the fumes are not fun, so it is best to just vent those out in a way. Even wood, I don't like that burning wood smell. It cannot be so fun. So the vent is a huge improvement to this, and I highly recommend the enclosure. The last thing that they included was a air assist module, and what this does is it basically just pumps air through it into the laser head and just sort of blows at the cutting surface. What this does is both help keep the cut clean by getting smoke away from the laser path, but also keep debris and things from bouncing back up into the lens. This helps make maintenance less needed and less often for the laser. And it's just, I would say, almost necessary to get this module. It just will make your life easier. You'll wind up with much cleaner cuts. Then the thing that I did buy was the honeycomb board that goes underneath. I was having a little too much fun. I burnt the crap out of my table. I kind of expected to. So I went out of my way and I bought this specific Atomstack honeycomb board. They boast that it helps with how the cuts look on the bottom, and I would say that is true versus cutting them free in the air, that the cuts are much cleaner, and then I'm not setting my table on fire anymore. So you definitely need a honeycomb board for a laser engraver. I should have just got it originally. So this actually came in a box. I took it out of the box because I used the box to spray paint things. But first things first, it comes with a big, thick user manual. That is great. I'm gonna be following this to put it together. I think it should be pretty simple. This was packaged really well. Definitely big props there. This is very sturdy foam and it's all laser cut. First things first, let's build it. They put a lot of care into this. The belts are pre-tensioned on these axes here. So this is already all set. It looks like I might need to adjust the eccentric nut a little bit just to tighten it up on the rail, but the belts themselves are tensioned correctly, which is very nice. They also included all the screws in this bag, and each screw is labeled step 1, step 2, step 3. That's really nice. And they're clearly labeled in the manual, step 1, step 2, step 3. So I think they're trying to make this as easy as possible.
And it was easy. This whole thing couldn't have taken me much longer than like 30 minutes. And I totally messed up once too because I just didn't really read the instructions very thoroughly. But it was super convenient. The screws were labeled, the instructions were clear, made it through super fast, super easy. The steps even walk you through adjusting the eccentric nut. I was just making sure as I went through that everything was as square as possible. And yeah, what else can I say? Good job, Atomstack.
Okay, so before I test it actually, they sent me a couple things to go along with this. Boom, boom. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool looking thing. It looks like it plugs in with a little DC connector, and then it has some air tube and some zip ties. I'm assuming once I find a permanent setup for all of this, I'll probably cut the hose to length and probably use the zip ties to neaten it up. But for now, there you go. That's how it works. So as far as I understand, this thing's basically kind of like a fabric kind of box, sort of like a cardboardy, like wood with material over it, I guess. It's thin. It really is just supposed to keep the fumes out. It comes with a fan and like an air duct, which is perfect if I do use it inside, which probably I will. Oh, an LED strip. That's fun. Ooh. I think this is the top. This is the lid. Did you look at that? Yeah, this kind of just unfolds out. This is pretty big. This is bigger than this table, just barely. I mean, yeah, I think this is supposed to be just like a simple enclosure for the laser cutter. Cool, and then the rest of it, it's just a fan that mounts. There's a hole back there, and then you use the duct to push all of the bad fumes outside. It's got just a regular DC plug, and that's it. It's a 12-volt fan. Boop.
So hold up right there. This is a mistake that took me way too long to figure out. Atomstack has this really nice bit on their website that shows you basic material settings for their specific laser cutters. However, they listed in millimeters per minute, which is what you're supposed to do for diode lasers, but the light burn software I was using defaults to millimeters per second. So I was running this laser cutter way too fast and it was doing almost nothing, and it took me a very long time to figure it out. But after figuring that out, I did wind up with a pretty cool result in my first test run here.
That is so awesome. Oh, that's so perfect. That looks so good. I'm really impressed with that. That's amazing. I'm debating just actually cutting this out and framing it. Look at his stupid little face. I love him.
So for the sake of time, I have like hours of footage of me messing with this thing. I was having way too much fun. But let's just go through real quick what I did. I tried to cut cork. It did not work. I think you're more looking to cut cork wood and not like this cork, which is a bunch of stuff glued together. I don't know. I'll explore it more in the future. I cut red acrylic really easily on my first try. The edges weren't perfect, but I think there's some things I can do to adjust for that. And then I also cut some wood, and that was awesome. After that, I did a little bit of engraving, and then I did an experiment where I cut and engraved a piece of red acrylic.
That worked out really well, but also came out a little terrifying. So, if you don't subscribe, I'll put this under your pillow. With some practice under my belt, I decided I wanted to make a project for this video to kind of show off some of the capabilities of the machine. I decided I wanted to make a clock. I don't know why, it's just a clock. But I made a clock using my channel thumbnail. I thought it would be interesting. And I also decided I kind of want to use this wall to film in front of for future videos. This is in my garage here. But this is kind of boring. I need to add some decoration. So why not? A clock. Feel free to let me know below if there's anything you want me to add to this wall, or anything, really. I mean, let's spice it up. It's a little boring. Anyway, this clock is a mixture of both some MDF wood, some very thin MDF, and acrylic. I decided that I wanted to kind of mix up materials, because I think that's something that a laser cutter is really good at, is cutting the exact same shape out of different things. There were some potential problems as I was making this. As you notice that my channel thumbnail here, the background is blue, and blue laser diodes are not good at cutting things that are blue. This is because of physics. Things that are blue actually like to reflect blue. So if you're putting blue at them, it'll just kind of reflect off. It doesn't mean I didn't try, and I was able to cut through some of the like baby blue acrylic sheets I had, but it more so kind of just melted through and came out really dirty and not good. So I decided to cut it out of MDF and then just spray paint it, which is what I did. And that totally wasn't before I cut it all the way out of green acrylic and forgot that I had scaled up my final drawing and totally didn't just waste a whole sheet of green acrylic and a bunch of my time. That definitely didn't happen. Anyway, the important point here is colors that are not similar to blue will always cut best. I found that even the white on the eyes here was really tough to cut and actually took 3 passes for just 2 millimeters of acrylic. However, black acrylic cut amazingly well. Super like buttery clean edges and everything, and that was awesome, especially on a 12-watt laser. Very cool and very easy to cut. I think in the future, I'm only gonna stick to cutting in black. I thought the other colors, while they did work out well, they just didn't have as clean edges and were maybe not the best. And this was just so much easier and just came out so cleanly. I'm gonna stick with black, I think, for all future projects involving acrylic. Anyway, the clock itself was just a mix of a bunch of different parts, and so all I did was kind of super glue it together. I bought this clock kit off Amazon for a couple dollars, drilled a hole in the middle, and now it's a clock. I hope you guys really like my Comic Sans text for the numbers. It's very professional. I really like Comic Sans, and that's why I use it on my resume. So, with that being said, let's put it on the wall. So like, is it vain that I made a clock with my own face on it? Like, is that vain? I feel like it would be vain if I wasn't so handsome. I should probably put it higher, but I just wanted to cover the hole in the wall. Real quick, before I say my final thoughts, let's go over a couple extra things. The thing I mentioned earlier in the video with the bonus feature that this offers. First off, my garage does not have any power. I'm actually using a battery pack to power my lights and then just the battery for the camera. So that's why initially I thought I was gonna have to use this in my 1-bedroom apartment. But while I was using it, I found that the power it draws is actually very minimal. My battery pack can do about 300 watts, which is quite a bit. But this thing, full bore with the fan going, everything, hovers around 70 watts, which is very little power. So the cool part about that means I could totally take this on the go and use it wherever I want. Please don't actually do that. Please keep it safe. However, using this in my garage does mean that I can't use the built-in Wi-Fi. I think there is a way to connect the Wi-Fi to your network and use it from your like home network, but I couldn't really find good instructions for that, and it seemed really complex and like the weird YouTube videos I found about it. You can connect directly to it over Wi-Fi with like your phone. There's an app they have. I couldn't really get the app to do anything. I mean, I could get it to frame, but I couldn't actually make it cut. Not really a big deal to me. Well, at first, it actually did bother me a lot that I had to use my laptop with it, but I found with like the Lightburn software and stuff, it was just much better to have the computer right there so you can mess with your settings on the fly and not have it be somewhere completely different. I found that to be much more convenient actually, even though it did bother me at first. So I installed Lightburn on my laptop, so whenever I want to laser cut things, I just bring my laptop to the garage. So speaking about the Lightburn software, it is a $60 license to get it. However, like I mentioned before, you don't have to use the paid software. There is a free version out there. I think it's pronounced Laser Gerbil. Feel free to correct me. But Laser Engraver is free and open source, and Atomstack does provide instructions on how to set it up for either software. My preference is Lightburn. I really like the material, there's like a test material thing you can do, which will help you dial in perfect settings for whatever material you want. Atomstack suggestions are pretty spot on, but for, you know, like different colors of acrylic, they don't always cut the same, so being able to do that material settings test was like really helpful. One more thing that I haven't mentioned yet at any part in the video is how you actually focus this laser. The way you do it with this machine is you have this little metal spacer, this thing right here, and it has two heights, and you basically use the thumb screws on the laser head to, you know, raise or lower it based on whatever height this is at. And that's a pretty easy system. One is for cutting and one is for engraving. But Atomstack actually is starting to ship something this month that is called the L2 Smart Z-Axis module. And what that is it'll actually work with the autofocus button that is on here and autofocus for whatever material you're cutting. I would bet that autofocus is a much better focus than just like this shim. So it'll probably perform better with that module. And if I do receive that module, or if I go out of my way and buy one myself, I'll probably follow up with either a dedicated video or like a short or something about it. Speaking of that, actually brings me to my next point that I really like about this machine, and that is Atomstack's accessories or their add-ons. It makes the whole thing feel like a big ecosystem. It's very like modular. So the customer, like me, can pick and choose what accessories they want with their machine. If you notice, I already have two accessories, the air assist module and the enclosure. But in the future, if I want to get other things, there's like extended frames, there's a camera that can watch it, tons of other sort of things. You can pick and choose what you want, and that keeps you from having to spend extra money on features you would never use. Think of like the LiDAR on the X1 Carbon 3D printer. But then let's talk about that spending part specifically. This is by no means a cheap machine. However, in the world of laser cutters, this is actually considered to be one of the more budget options. And I would argue that you do pay for what you get. You are getting pretty high quality, and as well as like from a beginner, it turned out pretty good. But so at its current price, you would pay $399 for the laser engraver. This is the A10 version. $129 even for the enclosure, $89.99 for the air assist module, and $79 even for the honeycomb board. That is just under $700 all in. And I'm not gonna pretend like that isn't a large sum of money. That is a lot of money to spend out of pocket. But if it were all my own money, would I spend it? Yeah, I would. I think this is a great addition to my tool set. I'm very happy with how easy it was to use. I really didn't struggle with anything, getting it all set up and working. In fact, I would actually probably spend a little more and go for the the A20 version with the 24 watt laser. I think that would have been a little more worth it in my case, just kind of enable me to do a little bit more. That being said, the 12 watts is plenty for me and can cut through so far everything I've needed it to. So the A10 Pro V2 is a great beginner machine. I would consider this to be like an entry-level machine for people like me who are trying to get into the hobby. I really like the modular nature of all the add-ons and the accessories. I think Atomstack did a great job with setting up a whole ecosystem. And the last point, I would recommend this laser engraver to anyone who is looking for one, especially someone who's looking to get into the hobby and has never owned one before. I think this is a great option to start with. So with that all being said, thank you for watching. Let me know below in the comments if there's any questions or comments you have about anything, and I will see you next time.